This is Rita Dairit, and this is Buhay Parang Life, where we discuss issues about this thing called life. Thank you, my dear viewers, for watching this episode. I ask you to please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and Facebook page. We are also in the Faith Watch app, so please feel free to download the Faith Watch app on your mobile device. We read and value your comments, so please write down your comments and suggestions below. To continue with our episode on the Catholic vote, my pleasure to bring to you again Arrogationist priest, Father John Francis Aberion. Father,
Good
thank you
evening po,
again.
Tita Rita, and good evening to our viewers. Thank you for having me for our second part.
Father, in the first part, sinabi mo kung paano dapat bumoto ang isang Katoliko kasi nga, yung isang boto natin, nako, para tuloy, kasi minsan di ba parang iniisip natin, di na ako boboto, isa lang naman yun eh. But our one vote, our singular vote can actually affect 110
million
tayo? 110
plus,
million.
110 million plus, as per the survey of DOH.
110 million Filipinos for 6 years. So Father, sabi mo nga kanina, if you stop preaching, if you stop teaching, then magsasuffer ang civil society kasi hindi na namin alam kung paano dapat ang gawin namin, no? So in this episode, tell us ano ba ang Catholic social teachings ng simbahan? Ano ba ang social teachings ng simbahan? Sabi mo kanina sa first episode, first part natin, two things that God instituted, the church and the civil society. So hindi pala pwede talagang paghiwalayin yung church and state.
Okay, we need to make the difference first, no? Kasi yung even the term state, even the civil society are two of different categories, no?
Oh, okay.
Yes, opo. Kasi kailangan malinaw sa atin ito. So yung civil society na create ng Diyos is for us, of course, to interact with. Now, in order to secure, no, in order to sabihin natin to secure the good which God wants for each of us to have, there is the creation of the state. So the state is at the service of the civil society, not against it. Kaya meron tayong state in order to ensure that the civil society that God envisions for each of us to have will continue to persist as an avenue for our good, for our salvation. You may also call it that way.
All right. So ano po ba yung mga tinuturo ng simbahan? Ano ba yung social teachings ng ating simbahan? What are the principles?
Okay.
For example, I think
yep.
top of mind right now would be human dignity.
Yes, actually, that's the source. That's the foundation of the rest of the six Catholic social teachings or principles, you may call it. So from the human dignity, there comes, for example, participation and common life. Meron din namang family life. Meron din namang common good or also the principle of the universal destination of goods. The principle of solidarity, subsidiarity, magkakasama po yan, stewardship, and of course, the preferential option for the poor.
Okay, so
all of them are
natin
linked together.
Oo, hindi naman talaga mapapaghiwalay yan.
Hindi talaga
so when
mapapaghiwalay.
you say human dignity, what exactly does that mean?
Okay, human dignity is what we normally teach as being created in the image and likeness of God, no? But it also means na kung ano yung vision sa atin ng Panginoon is something that we have to assume as part of our responsibility. Once we become aware that we are the images and likeness of God, then we do our best to pursue, to become godly images. So it also means na when there is the accomplishment of the use of our intellect, our free will, and then the use of our emotions, practically everything. if all of these things that we have as part of our being persons ay in accordance with the mind and vision of God para sa atin, then we are fulfilling our call to assume that dignity which God calls us to realize in ourselves.
So when does a person fail to fulfill that role? When does a person go against that? I can imagine yung human dignity is inherent in us because we are made
Inherent.
in the image and
Yes.
likeness of God. So what are the things that, or when does a person go against his dignity as someone made in the image and likeness of God?
When we sin. When we
Father,
sin.
di ba sinful naman talaga tayo? Talaga namang that is part, isn't sin like part of being human?
In the vision of God, in the mind of God, it's not part. Hindi siya talaga bahagi. Sin entered because man chose. No, man chose to disobey God. So we cannot associate that sinfulness to what God envisions with each of us right from the very beginning. Kasi kung ganyan po ang magiging perspective, ibig sabihin God is also the author of evil. That is also a consequence of that one. So yung pag sinasabi natin may inherent tayong goodness, ibig sabihin we have that capacity to realize what God envisions for each of us. Now, when we talk about sin, no, it has also many levels, no. That there are two types of sin: the sin of omission and commission.
Right.
No, yung omission is when we omit something, no, when we omit something that we are supposed to carry out as a part of the good, and then and yung commission naman when we actively participate on something that is offensive against the Lord. And from there, meron dong pang sumasanga na personal and then even social sin. No, so hindi lang yung omission and commission but also personal and social sin. Ito
Ang
ding
dami
dalawang
pala,
ito.
Father, sa
Marami.
examination of conscience, may omission, commission, personal, and social sin. So, Father,
Yes.
malibang sabihin na sapagkat ako ay tao lamang.
It's a reductionist view of the human person, and certainly it does not figure in the vision of God. Which we
Say
need
that
to,
again, it is a reduction.
a reduction, ibig sabihin, pagmamaliit, no, minamaliit natin masyadong ating sarili. Kasi a lot of times, yes, I think I am perceiving where this is coming from. There are a lot of people na who think na they can do a lot of things, then later on they can just simply say na sorry, tao lang. We can hear
Yes,
that
yes.
from many people, no.
Right.
But it seems to me that in our society, at least within the Filipino culture, it becomes an excuse not to do our part, to exert effort to become better every day.
Oh,
No?
so there
Masyado
should
natin
be no
minamalit yung sarili natin. Yes.
Oh.
Kapag ganun, masyado natin minamalit yung sarili natin or maliit yung tingin natin sa ating sarili kapag ganun ang lagi nating excuse.
Kasi dapat ang tingin natin sa sarili natin,
We are begotten of God. We are children of God. Imagine pag children of God, kaya ibig sabihin, part ng vision ni God is for us to be divine. For us to assume that divine image. No?
Okay. So challenge yan. So how do
Challenge
we
talaga. It's really a challenge.
So how do we preserve our human dignity and also the dignity of others?
Mm-hmm. Now, preserving the dignity of ourselves will come in a lot of layers, a lot of degrees, no. But it starts with telling myself that I am a child of God. I can learn from God. I can learn from what God wants of me, and because of that, I want to be happy. So, a simple conviction, no, telling myself that so and so, nung kaninang sinabi ko kanina that I am a child of God, then it follows from there, no, kapag sincere tayo, convinced tayo sa sarili, it follows from there na yung kung papaano natin tinitignan yung sarili natin will also have a consequence on how we contribute to our society. Now, when we take care of ourselves, when we value ourselves as persons who are children of God, ganoon din na magiging tingin natin sa ibang tao. So you see, it becomes a consequence of what we perceive with ourselves.
Oh, so
Ganun
Father,
lang po
are
yun.
you saying when a person does not parang value another person,
It has its
basically you are
roots
saying
from
its roots is you do not value yourself also?
most likely po. Most
Most
likely.
likely.
Kapag
Most
maliit ang
likely.
tingin mo sa iyong sarili, magiging maliit din ang tingin mo sa ibang tao.
So kailangan ang tingin natin sa sarili natin, anak ng Diyos, at lahat ay anak
Ay,
din ng
anak ng
Diyos,
Diyos.
worthy of
Yes.
our respect. Yan talaga ang turo ng simbahan. Okay, Father, what about yung bang ibang sanga ng yung mga sumasanga sa human dignity like the common good?
Okay, the common good, no, I'd like to read this one as it is verbatimly expressed by the church, no. Ang sabi dito, the common good is understood to be the sum total of social conditions which allow people, either as groups or as individuals, to reach their fulfillment more fully and more easily. I could not paraphrase it more kasi napakaganda yung pagkaka-formulate na to. This has been tried and tested through the years. Not only since the time of Leo XIII, who started who was supposed to start who was thought to have started the social teachings of the church with this Rerum Novarum, no? But since the time of the church fathers, no, of course we might not see it directly as it is in the gospel itself, but ito yung magiging logical outcome nung lahat ng tinuturo ni Jesus, common good, no? Common good na sum total of social conditions like health, food, water, electricity. Pagsamahin natin lahat yan in order for us to reach our fulfillment, who is none other than God Himself. If all of these things are able to make us perceive the vision of God for us, if all of these things are able to serve us in order for us to see God, then that is what we call as common good. Yan ang nasa isipan ng simbahan. That is what the church has reflected on this term.
And it has to, kumbaga, dapat kasali din kasi nga common good kasali din the rest of mankind.
Of course, the rest of the mankind.
Hindi pwedeng yung sarili mo lang, hindi pwedeng fulfilled ka sa sarili mo lang.
Yes. That's only self-fulfillment, but sometimes self-fulfillment may even be against the common good, like for example, private property.
Right.
Very contentious-able ang private property. Meron ding tamang turong simbahan with regard to the understanding of the use of the private property.
Ano po ang turo ng simbahan tungkol diyan?
Private property is thought to be sabihin natin, if I paraphrase it, no, is thought to be a fruit of your labor, of your honest labor, of course. So what you gain from the labor is what you possess and can even serve as an enhancement of your well-being, no, of your personal well-being or the well-being of your family. Pero merong limits ito, hindi siya absolute. Kasi when the common good requires it, you are supposed to give a contribution for the good of the society. So when we say pag 10 ang sports car mo sa bahay, ask yourself, do you really need those? Maybe somebody else would need that. Private property mo yon, it's true, nakapangalan lahat sa iyo yon, no? Tamang papel, lahat. Wala namang walang
tsaka fruit of your labor naman.
Fruit of your labor, pero ask yourself.
But still,
is this sobra or is this enough? Sometimes meron kasing private property na sobra-sobra. It becomes a mere possession lang without due consideration sa mga kapitbahay natin na someone na walang-wala, no, pagdating talaga sa basic needs, no, walang lack of means for education, ganon, and then means for a simple livelihood, like for example food, shelter, clothing, health, so on and so forth, no, a decent health care in that sense. So probably it's time for that person to think twice and maybe to adjust to that kind of situation. Kasi meron pong ano yan meron pong universal mortgage ang lahat ng mga bagay natin. May
Ano yung
universal mortgage.
universal mortgage, Father? Anong ibig sabihin nun?
Okay. Ibig sabihin, hindi lang po natin strictly speaking na pag-aari po yun. When the society needs it, that's like what I have said, we have to be ready to let our goods be used for the good of our brethren. Kaya yung po yung sinabi kong universal mortgage. Halimbawa, pa nag-internet ka, hindi lang para sa sarili mo, pero yung tignan mo rin kung ano yung magagamit ng internet para sa ikabubuti ng iyong kapwa. Parang ganon.
Father, I always say na kasi you agree with me, no, na meron na maraming mahirap sa Pilipinas pero ang dami ring mayamang mayaman. And we have seen that. Hindi naman kaya nga nagkaroon ng corruption kasi may pera. Sabi ko, wala namang magnanakaw kung wala namang nanakaw. So may pera ang Pilipinas. Pero hindi, ang naririnig ko kasi, sasabihin nila, kasi para sa pamilya ko. Alam mo yung mga ibang sobrang yayaman, parang naka-invest, naka-reserve na yung for the next 5 generations or 3 generations. Do you agree with me na medyo may ganong mentality yung mga mayayamang Pilipino, yung naka-reserve ito, hindi nila, kahit sobra-sobra na, hindi nila naiisip yung common good or medyo kung magbibigay barya, kasi iniisip nila yung next generation, yung mga apo nila. So, mali ba yung isipan na yun, Father? Ganon ang Pilipino eh.
Well, I have personally seen this one, no? In some of my friends na, Father, kasi ito para ito sa mga future mga apo sa tuhod. Kahit apo sa tuhod, hindi pa nga nag-exist. No?
Hindi pa nga pinapanganak yung magulang.
Hindi pa nga pinapanganak. Naka-prepare na, no? So, there is always a criteria. Of course, we can discuss it in detail, pero I would always go down to that level na there is always a criteria of sobra and enough, no? And when I say this one, it does not mean na I am against those who invest for the future of their In fact, it's a good venture. Kaya lang pag sobra, no? Pag alam natin sobra by our conscience, kung alam natin sobra 'yan, then we have to do something about that one, no? Kung may mga sobra masyado yung mayaman, certainly merong mga may consequences sa ating society. Meron din talaga maghihirap. No?
May maghihirap no?
Opo. Ano po yan parang siso po yan Siso. Parang kapag sobrang yaman, sobrang panaggagaling.
Right.
Pag sobrang angat ng meron talagang babagsak. And we are looking for an equitable, equitability between those two. Yeah, the rich and the poor. Yeah.
Talk to us about solidarity, Father. Ano bang ibig sabihin nito? When
Solidarity,
the church teaches solidarity.
Yes. Solidarity is simply put brotherhood. Brotherhood. But this refers more to this refers more in particular doon sa rights ng bawat tao with regard to work. Kasi there are also of course this is not limited to work, but it emerges from that area of our society, work, no? Kasi there are times na there are work conditions na unjust and unfair. May mga work na parang beyond 18 hours kung magtrabaho sila, pero they are still underpaid. They are not paid well. May mga nag-overtime sa trabaho and yet their benefits are not met. So, solidarity means also when you say social empathy, pwede mo rin sabihin social empathy. You put yourself at the shoes of those people who have been deprived with enough wage, who does not have enough for their personal and even well-being pagdating sa kanilang pamilya, not enough to support their family for on a daily basis. So kung ang kumpanya ay For example, ay nagbibigay lamang ng salary na hanggang hand to mouth lang ang kaya nilang i-provide,
Yeah.
then there must be something that can be done. So we have that kind of principle, the principle of solidarity.
Pareho ba to, Father, nung preferential option for the poor? Pareho ba sila ng ibig sabihin o iba naman yun? Kasi yung sa solidarity, binanggit mo yung trabaho, yung hand-to-mouth existence, yung role ng businessmen, no, in the care of their employees. Kasi nga poor yun eh. So is this the same o ano pa ang kasali sa preferential option for the poor na hindi kasama dito sa principle of solidarity?
I think kasi very diverse din yung pagkakasabi ng simbahan with regard to the preferential option for the poor. Now let us make clear na it does not mean na pag sinabing preferential option for the poor, I have other options na aside from the preferential option for the poor. In fact, Christian conscience tells us to prefer always the poor, to choose always serving the poor. No? So it's
How do you
not an option.
concretize that principle, Father? Yung always prefer, ano ba?
Choose the weak. Choose the weak. Look for the weakest in the society. Yun ang una mong pagsilbihan. Yun ang una nating pagsilbihan. Yun ang una nating bigyan ng panahon, ng ating oras, ng ating talent, ng ating effort. Kasi sila yung walang-wala. And they need to be competent and they need to compete. Compete in a sense na they need also na may kakayahan sila makipagsapalaran sa ating society. So when we are able to give that, then we are choosing to help really the poor. No, it's not only about giving alms. That can be a start, but that should not stop there. We have to build a system. We were saying a while ago na corruption is not just a personal person, it's a system. Now we have to break. So if we can break that system, that vicious cycle of the corruption, no, then we are actually serving the weakest, the last, and the lost. Yun po ang ibig sabihin ng pagko-concretize ito. Maraming initiatives, of course, but that's how far I could go. Just serving the least, the last.
Karamihan po ng mga kandidato kapag kampanya, ganun sila, di ba? Yun talaga ang they campaign to the poor kasi parang na pinapangakuan nila, ano pa nga naman ba maipapangako mo sa may kaya na, hindi ba? Pero we know na pag nakaupo na sila, bakit ganun pa rin karami ang mahihirap sa Pilipinas? Kasi, so kailangan pala titignan din natin yun, sa pagpili natin, kung talagang sinisilbihan nila ang mahihirap. Para sana mabawasan naman.
Yes, ganito po kasi yan, tita. Ang understanding natin ng election of leaders is not expecting the leaders to spoon-feed us once they are elected. No. Ang point ko lagi dyan, when we elect leaders, we choose a leader that can engage us to contribute in the society. Now, if an elected leader inspires us to be tamad, to be lazy, to just wait until the apple falls from the tree.
Yes,
that's not the election that we are looking for.
Hindi yun. Oo.
Dapat
kumbaga
civic
empowerment.
Yes.
Okay. What about subsidiarity, Father? Parang nahirapan ako sabihin nyo na. Subsidiarity. Ano bang ibig sabihin nito?
Civic engagement. That's what I have been referring to a while ago. Civic engagement. So ibig sabihin, may responsibilidad ang mga nasa taas, meron ding responsibilidad ang mga nasa baba. Yes, kung hindi na nila kaya, itong nasa baba, kung hindi na nila kaya, it's the job of the higher-ups to help, not to intervene in the day-to-day activities of the person. Magkaiba po kasi yan eh. Kung papakialaman na ng mga higher-ups yung the way how we decide, the way how we choose our fruits or our rice, that's no longer subsidiarity. Subsidiarity is, for example, ang parents kailangan nila ng school para sa kanilang mga anak because the education of the parents must be complementarity with the one being offered by the civil society, which is the school. So, dapat makapag-provide ang school para sa mga bata, no? Para maturuan sila ng a lot of subjects, which in the reality of the parents, kahit hindi sila, siguro from those who are working, from those who may not be working, no, na kailangan talaga ng ng eskwelahan in that sense.
Right, right. Father, parang naka-weave na rin dito yung participation and stewardship no?
Exactly.
Oo.
So parang it's like a domino effect there. So
Yes, oo. Ngayon
it's a domino effect.
Yes, we realize now as you are teaching,
Yes.
nasa talagang yung social teachings ng simbahan, siya yung isang buo. Isang
Isang
buo
buo
siya,
siya.
the dignity,
Inherent.
the subsidiary. Yes.
Inherent
So,
and integral. The church usually uses these two terms, inherent and integral. You cannot separate one in order for it to be antagonist with the other. No? So kahit nasabi ka na dyan, ang sabi ng common good ka ng common good, pero your common good is does not follow from the dignity of the human person, or from participation, does not engage the civil public, the public. So it's not common good at all. So even the participation. Yes.
O ano yung participation yun?
Participation, ibig sabihin, lahat tayo, all of us, have a responsibility for one another. Have a responsibility to uphold a humane and just and peaceful society. Itong tatlong ito, solid ito pagdating sa ating social doctrine, sa ating Christian social doctrine, ating Catholic social doctrine. All of us, by baptism, by virtue of our baptism, are called to uphold a humane, just, and peaceful society for a peaceful coexistence.
For a peaceful coexistence. So, part na rin dyan, syempre, ang stewardship.
Of course. Stewardship. Why? Sa akin, mas naging malinaw yung stewardship when Pope Francis was able to enunciate it, articulate it better when of course that's a development through time, no? Language also develops, no? I for one also like the social encyclical of Benedict XVI, which is Caritas in Veritate, which is another good reading, by the way. But another good development which is built from the Caritas in Veritate is yung the Laudato Si of Pope Francis. The Laudato Si of Pope Francis. What a wonderful addition to our social encyclicals, or the body of social teaching. Ano meron doon? Kasi yung stewardship natin is has also a intergenerational consequence. Ano ibig sabihin ng intergenerational consequence? The things that we do right now, the technologies that we do right now, yung mga ina-develop nating technologies, and even initiatives, and even projects, it will have a repercussion for the future generations, right, of young people, of children. So it's like in that perspective, in that document, Laudato Si, that encyclical, very beautiful encyclical. I encourage the viewers to read that. Sana nga may Tagalog tayong version yun kasi
Father, may program actually under Faith Watch na Laudato Si. Meron
very good. Very good. Sana mga viewers natin makapag-participate doon sa program po ninyo kasi Pope Francis is coming from Latin America, so napaka-diverse ang mga doon, ang mga concerns doon, especially the plight of the poor and the plight of those who are living in under acceptable social conditions, no. So one of that one is to emphasize on creation. Ibig sabihin, we have been entrusted with this gift of creation, all of the things around us, the natural resources that we have. But at the same time, meron din itong responsibility para sa atin na hindi dapat natin kunin lahat, no, for ourselves alone. We must leave something for the future generations to benefit from. So he was saying na kung tayo ngayon ay puro tayo erode ng land, no, tanggal ng lupa. Ano na yung hangin na i-inhale, no, ng ating mga future generations of young people, of children. So he was saying that one. He was posting that question, and to me, it brings a lot of implications. Kasi hindi lang naman yun sa akin. He was making an analogy, but it means also marami ding bagay. Not only that.
Okay. Naku, thank you so much, Father. You just made us better Catholics with no,
So we have
na-enlighten
to,
kami
all of us have to work together. That's
sa
what I always believe.
social teachings ng simbahan. Maraming salamat po. Thank you, my dear viewers, for tuning in. This is Rita Diary reminding you today, haba-habaan po ang pasensya sapagkat ang buhay parang life.